We know that a lot's happening in the states. A lot will happen in the states. A lot depends on what the states do. So this year, we're going to be rolling out 2 toolkits. One will be a toolkit for advocates, providing various resources, and another will be a legislator toolkit. That's one that you can leave behind with you when you meet with state legislators. We'll have a number of online initiatives and some podcasts, and this webinar tonight is the first in a series. We're going to a year-long series. On the 3rd Wednesday of every other month, we'll have some topic that deals with advocacy or policy. And if you want to see the schedule for the rest of the year and the topics, you can visit apw.hemophiliafed.org, the web address that's right there on your screen. Some of the goal of the webinars, just to let you know, is one, to provide policy education, but it's also to help advocates and grassroots members of the community kind of build your advocacy skills. So we'll be discussing topics in the future such as online advocacy, messaging, how to build and maintain coalitions, and we also want to use these opportunities to learn what's happening in other states. I'm going to hand it over right now to Ebony, and she's going to talk a little bit about essential health benefits, and of course starting with the health insurance exchanges. So take it away, Ebony.
Thanks, Jonathan, for that great introduction. As Jonathan mentioned, tonight we're just going to focus on essential health benefits, and part of that is just briefly going over the exchanges. As many of you know, there are numerous components to the Affordable Care Act, but we just wanted to just focus on essential health benefits tonight, since that is the most current and relevant to the community at hand. And just a FYI, I am logged in as M. Berg, which is Michelle Berg, most of you know, just in case. So if you have any questions, myself and Jonathan were both logged in as M. Berg. So if you don't happen to see us logged in as ourselves. So just to start off, the Federal Department of Health and Human Services estimates that up to 30 million people would be enrolled in health plans through the state exchange by 2020. And if you include Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program, that number could rise to 80 million. So in the exchanges, plans that will operate or sell their product in an exchange must cover essential health benefits. And this coverage, or the plans, will be organized in a tiered structure. And I'll talk about that a little bit later briefly. And some other components of health insurance exchanges include guidance around risk adjustment for plans. There also will be tax credits and premium subsidies for people who qualify, who need assistance in paying the premiums on the plans. So they may do that through premium subsidies and tax credits. There are also cost-sharing subsidies and limits to the cost-sharing amounts that plans may have in the health insurance exchange. There are also performance standards for plans. They must be what is termed as qualified health plans. So you may see that terminology used in your state. And the main point or purpose of the health insurance exchange is that it will target individual purchasers and small businesses, which are usually the population that either cannot afford or lack health insurance due to the high cost. There are also, in setting up an exchange, states have to give themselves the legal authority to do so. So many of them are doing that through legislation or executive orders, etc. And in regards to the cost sharing limits for individual in an exchange plan will be $5,950, and for a family, it'll be $11,900. per year annually. Also, there will be no cost sharing on preventative services. The whole purpose of an exchange would be that consumers would be able to easily compare plans, which is, as many of you know, is very difficult to do now. So there will be, and many of you may have seen regulations come out from the federal government and having health insurance plans explicitly and clearly explain benefits. So the health insurance exchange will also help with that process for consumers that wish to purchase in the exchange. So they would need to use things such as their websites and brochures. And the idea is that a single entity would be in charge of enrollment to make it easier for consumers to enroll or purchase health coverage. And many may have a similar technical setup as other eligibility systems and public programs. So if you think of how you may enroll in Medicaid or how you may go to apply for TANF assistance. States have a lot of flexibility in exchange setup. However, they must show that they're making progress in setting up the exchange by 2013, or the federal government may step in to help usher that progress along. If the state doesn't set up an exchange, the federal government will. So if you live in a state that may be part of the lawsuit against the Affordable Care Act, the federal government will still set up an exchange in your state. And there are different, I guess, models that the federal government has proposed. It can, exchange can now be a federal and state partnership, or the states can start off and then shift it back to the federal government, or the federal government can start it off for states, and then the state can take over after a determined amount of time. So this map I thought would be a good illustration of where states are at in setting up exchanges. This map I got from the Commonwealth Fund. You can see their logo on the bottom. And they got it from the National Conference of State Legislatures. So as you can see, it says as of January 2012, so most likely before any the state legislatures opened. And you can see the colored codedness of the map to show where states are at if they had an exchange. So obviously Utah had an exchange. If they signed laws after the ACA was passed, if legislation failed, if governors are trying to work with the federal government around their options, so you can get a good sense. And just as a FYI, we'll post the presentation and also send it out to those who are registered, so you don't have to worry about copying the categories and colors. So from this process of an exchange, the main component of the exchange would be the essential health benefits that will be covered under plans sold in exchange. So under the Affordable Care Act, health plans that intend on operating in an exchange must offer essential health benefits. And in this process, there are 10 categories of coverage. So some of the categories include ambulatory care, emergency services, hospitalization, maternity, newborn, mental health, rehabilitation, laboratory, preventative services, wellness, pediatric, oral, and vision, just to name some of them. And what I forgot to mention about an exchange, or a plans in an exchange, is that there will be 4 levels of coverage, which has already been, I guess, laid out. The 4 levels will be bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So the kind of, I guess, the cost sharing or percentage of coverage would be bronze would cover 60% of your costs, silver would be 70%, gold would be 80%, platinum would be 90%. And under the essential health benefits, and in the exchange, there are rules already in place regarding what's included, what's excluded, and on defining and updating. So in the process of determining essential health benefits, the federal government started out by asking the Institute of Medicine to hold listening sessions and receive input from the public and other stakeholders regarding what essential health benefits should look like. And then they were asked to compile a report of their own recommendations based on what they heard back and their own knowledge and research on what essential health benefits should look like. And this would be to advise us, the Department of Health and Human Services on the next step to take in the process. So from about December of, I think that was 2010, and then the report was released almost a year later in October. So I just wanted to briefly go over what the Institute of Medicine found in the report. And they basically developed a baseline package with an insurance premium target. So the main focus of a lot of their recommendations was around cost. They basically said that they would like to base the plan or base essential health benefits on what small employers would pay for insurance, and that it should be based on, sorry about that, it should be based on what small employers would pay for insurance and updated annually based on medical inflation. And then if states wanted to create alternatives to essential health benefits, it should be granted if they were consistent with the Affordable Care Act and what the Institute of Medicine has recommended. The package should have a balanced approach, not too generous and not too restrictive. The Institute of Medicine also recommended that states should determine what is a medical necessity, have transparency in rule development and the appeals process. They should make evidence-based coverage decisions, hold public meetings to get input, and the process should be developed to incorporate new discoveries and the implementation of innovative practices. Now, many consumer groups, including us here at HFA, were a little bit disappointed in the Institute of Medicine report, and that we were looking for the Institute of Medicine to recommend a federal standard, especially around medical necessity. And the report heavily relied on decisions based on cost and decisions left back to the states. And next in the process, after the report was released, the Federal Department of Health and Human Services held listening sessions to get public comment on the report and then more feedback on essential health benefits in general. And many of you may have attended. We posted it on our website. HFA attended, the HFA staff attended the listening session here in DC and submitted comments as well. And this process was to further, I guess, instruct HHS on next steps based on the IOM report and based on feedback as well. So for our position, or HFA's recommendations, and many of these, what I have listed below on the slide, an issue brief is posted on our website, and later in the slides we'll get to the website that we have created for essential health benefits, where you can get copies of our statements to the Institute of Medicine and to Department of Health and Human Services regarding essential health benefits. So our position was that the below items should be taken into consideration when looking at essential health benefits. We definitely are encouraging states and the Department of Health and Human Services to look at standards of care, especially for individuals with bleeding disorders, and the treatment of the bleeding disorder, and in the pharmacy benefit. We also are encouraging the use of a comprehensive care model and the inclusion of hemophilia treatment centers in any network that is set up through the health insurance exchanges, and it should be looked at as an essential health benefit. Also wanted a clear process on determining medical necessity, also on appeals and grievances. Obviously, a lot of us know about insurance coverage, what they call coverage through denial, where you keep going through appeals and appeals until the insurance company finally covers either treatment or service. We also want to make sure that exchange plans are not putting limits on certain types of benefits, since they cannot put limits on cost sharing. And also the maintenance of state mandates. Wherever there is a state mandate in place, especially for bleeding disorders, we definitely want that maintained. Also a clear process on updating essential health benefits. We know that medicine, new advances are constantly ongoing, and we want to make sure that any new treatments or any new standard is included in essential health benefits. And also making sure that cost sharing is kept in check and is not kind of passed off for more limits on benefits. So after this process, the Department of Health and Human Services came out with a bulletin very recently in December of 2011, so last month. And this was done instead of actually coming out with a regulation, which we were, HFA was a little bit disappointed in, and that bulletin was very flexible and more of a guidance instead of a regulatory approach. So through the bulletin, the Department of Health and Human Services declined to create a federal standard for essential health benefits, and states were given the maximum amount of flexibility in creating an essential health benefit package. And basically, they proposed that states select a benchmark plan of their choice that covers benefits. So the proposed options would include 4 benchmark plans. The first option, as you see, are any of the 3 largest small group plans in the state by enrollment, any of the 3 largest state employee health plans by enrollment, any of the 3 largest federal employee health benefit program options by enrollment, or the largest insured commercial non-Medicaid HMO plan operating in the state. And also in the bulletin, it kind of lays out, I guess, the way that these benchmarks would be selected as far as the enrollment numbers. There are certain targets and certain, I guess, kind of boundaries that states will have to go through to select the benchmark plan. So some other items in the bulletin include that HHS recommended that if one of the 10 categories of essential health benefits, which I mentioned earlier, is missing in a benchmark plan, states must add the categories to the essential health benefits package to be offered in the states. All states will have to select a benchmark plan whether or not they decide to operate a state health insurance exchange. Even in states that decline to select a benchmark plan, the federal government will select one, and it will be defined as the largest small group plan in the state. The essential health benefit package will apply to health plans sold in the individual and small group markets as well as in the exchanges, just to create a balance so that the same plans that are offered outside the exchange in the small group market aren't either far worse or far better than what's offered in the exchange. Also in the bulletin, the Affordable Care Act requires states to pay for benefits mandated by state law that fall outside of the benefit categories for exchange plans. And HHS has proposed to allow states a transition period in 2014 and 2014, and 2014 and 2015, where states that select a benchmark plan that includes state benefit mandates that fall outside the 10 categories will not have to pay for the additional benefits. And so that they will have to start covering the cost of these additional benefits in 2016 to give them a financial transition period. HHS has also proposed flexibility for health plans in regards to the substitution of benefits and services that may be allowed within each of these 10 categories. And as you can see, this is problematic because you may have concerns about health plans may still say by offering a certain benefit they're complying with the categories, but yet the benefit is still substandard. They also will be allowing flexibility with the adjustment of quantitative limits in service and benefits while still maintaining actuarial equivalence, meaning that you can kind of adjust and benefits, etc., but the value of the plan is still the same. The bulletin also indicates that Medicare Part D's benefit design flexibility standard will apply as a measure of permissible flexibility to substitute benefits. I don't know if many of you may know that Medicare Part D does have some issues as far as some of its benefit design and flexibility. There is a large number of plans tend to have a high number of tiers. There's also some issues with what's covered and under appeals, etc. So we want to look closely at modeling health insurance exchange plans after Medicare Part D. It's also important to note that factor is still covered under Medicare Part B, but other treatments, etc., may be under Part D. In their bulletin, HHS basically said that they found that plans do not differ significantly in the range and scope of benefits in a particular market. Instead, they have heavy difference in the area of cost sharing, which is definitely an obvious concern due to the high cost of treatments and care for community members with bleeding disorders. So we know that cost sharing is always a big issue. So the fact that they see that what they are proposing may not significantly address the area of cost sharing. And they also have said that benchmarks will be updated in the future, but state mandates outside the definition of essential health benefits will not be included in future years. So it's important to note that if the state does determine a mandate in later years, it will still not be an essential health benefit for those who have plans in the exchange. So as I've noted, there are definitely several concerns with the HHS bulletin. For example, will a state be permitted to exclude treatments from its benchmark if state law mandates it in some but not all health plans? HHS indicated that it is considering permitting plans to substitute within and across EHB categories at their discretion. So what limits might be placed on this discretion? What does that mean? The bulletin also discusses the agency's obligation to review access to care issues that may arise, and so what will this assessment process look like? Also, will plans limit the use of services they cover because there are cost-sharing limits? So in order to recoup revenues, will they look to limit services since they can't limit how much a person pays out of pocket? Also, based on HHS flexibility with actuarial equivalence, what kind of plan variance should we anticipate in plans within even the same benchmark, or the same, I shouldn't say benchmark, but within the same category? So among bronze plans, since there'll be the allowance of actuarial equivalence, what will different bronze plans look like? Will we still be looking at the same thing? Also, we know that this is a concern that if a state chooses the federal health plan as a benchmark, consumers in that state may receive a richer benefits package than in states that do not choose the federal benefit package. And also on top of that, probably have few mandates. And so there will most likely be less coverage of benefits. So you will also face the idea that obviously, which sometimes happens now, where states basically offer better insurance coverage than other states, which kind of defeats the intention of the Affordable Care Act. Also, still the idea that states can still repeal, restrict, or modify, or expand their own mandates. The ACA does not deal with that at all. Also, still needs to be determined is the method by which states will calculate and pay the additional cost of mandates when they have to start covering it in 2016. This has not yet been determined, and of course we will need federal regulations or guidance around how the cost will be calculated. There are also many questions and concerns regarding the cost-sharing features, which this bulletin did not address as well, and which is still of major concern, and how will actuarial value of a plan be determined. So now we'll hand it back over to Jonathan, where he's going to talk about what you can do and talk about some of the tools that we have developed regarding essential health benefits.
Thanks, Ebony. As Ebony mentioned, this is a very important issue, and certainly it's all coming to the states, and it will very soon be time for state legislators and other state entities to take action on this. So we just wanted to wrap up the presentation tonight by talking about some very practical things with respect to advocacy, particular with EHB advocacy on this issue, and to let you know about some new resources that we have specific to EHBs. Just a couple things on advocacy. Obviously, it's never too early. The bulletin just came out from HHS, their proposed rules, but start the discussions on this now. This is a good, because of the very concrete, specific ways that this will affect our community, this is a great issue to build relationships around. As so many of you know, advocacy is about relationships. So begin to bring this topic into discussion. And now's a great time to talk to state legislators about EHBs. Many of them won't even know what it is, and many of them even that will have to make important votes on this. So now's a great time to begin to just introduce the subject to them. And now's also the time to look at your state's mandates. If there are mandates that affect the bleeding disorders community, that affect us, now's the time to get familiar with them if you're not already, so that they can certainly be in mind when it comes to more detailed discussion in your state capital when this happens. We have some resources that we just put up on our website. In fact, we have a specific page that's just dedicated to the EHB issue. Policy resources just on this issue, advocacy resources, specific things that can help us in the bleeding disorders community make some progress on this issue and really work on our interests. And that is ehb.hemophiliafed.org. Want to highlight two new resources that we have on there. One is an EHB advocacy checklist, and that provides you can download it. It provides you with very, very specific and very practical steps that you can take to advocate on the issue of EHBs. And you can just go through it, and there are things that you can do, some of which you may be familiar with and some of which may be new. On ehb.hemophiliafed.org, we also have updated issue briefs on this topic and some sample statements and sample talking points as you begin to craft your own positions and statements on this issue. You can refer to some of these, and hopefully they'll be helpful. And we have source information as well. So if you actually want to read the HHS bulletin, you can download that as well. And there's links to other organizations and other policy resources as well on that page. So I really want to encourage you to go to that page, bookmark it. It'll provide you some really good, very practical assistance in advocating on this important issue. I think Ebony just brought up here, hopefully you can see it, the actual page. And again, encourage you to visit that. We also want to let you know about our symposium that's coming up. Everyone is invited, March 30 in sunny California. We're going to have some sessions that are dedicated to policy, dedicated to the exchange issue, and also some very interactive, hands-on sessions, particularly one on messaging and how to talk about this issue and other issues in ways that advance our interests. We want to open it up for questions at this time. If you have questions for Ebony or even of myself about this issue, or if you want to share your ideas, this can be a time when we as state advocates can share what's going on in our state or what's not going on in our state that we wish would be happening. Again, remind you, while Ebony opens it up to everyone, you will also have the option, if you want to submit questions through the side panel there online.
The moderator is muted the conference. This line cannot be unmuted.
Meredith, Miriam, Peter, Ray, Sue, and Dan, Debbie, Eileen. Actually, you know what? Everybody is available. If you have a question, time.
Somebody isn't using the right equipment.
So does anyone have a comment about what's happening in your state or a question? Just go ahead and shout it out, and if you have any overlap, that's okay.
If we're advocating, are we coordinating with other groups like the hepatitis C and other bleeding disorders?
And the answer to that is yes. Yeah, definitely. That's important to do. So we're doing that. Ebony, did you want to address that too?
Yeah, we're also a member in regards to hepatitis of the National Hepatitis Viral Hepatitis Roundtable, which is a coalition of the state hepatitis coordinators and national groups. So we are a member, and they do advocate for policy on a national level, and of course, essential health benefits is a major issue on their agenda as well.
Else? That's a good question and a good. Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Hey, this is Nathan Wilson, Colorado. I just wanted to offer my name. I'm actually on the exchange board in Colorado, so if anybody has any exchange-specific questions, I can probably help answer them.
Yeah, and thanks for chiming in, Nathan. You have a real leadership role there, so certainly, if you have any comments now or in the future, let us know, and thanks for making yourself a resource as well.
Well, I will say that myself and others definitely had a little bit of heartburn from the IOM and the HHS guidance basing the PhDs on cost and not really giving very clear guidelines. So that's something that we're all going to have to work through.
Yep, much agreed. Any other questions for Ebony or any comments or your thoughts in terms of this issue going forward and what's needed? You can also send a question through the chat function or through the question function through the GoToWebinar menu on your right. One of the things that Ebony has just put up too is her contact information and my contact information. We are available anytime to talk with you if you have questions about this issue or advocacy in general. So feel free to give her a call or me a call. We'd be happy to help you. If we don't know the answer, we will find someone who does.
Hello, can you hear me?
Any other questions or comments?
Hi, Lori. I'll answer your question. I'm not sure if you're off of mute or not, but you asked about New Mexico is blue, and I printed out a copy. I'll actually just scroll back to the map, since that might be helpful to talk about where different states are. So New Mexico is light blue, which looks like the governor vetoed or the decision was made not to establish an exchange. So that's what that light blue means. And that looks like some of the states that are involved in the court case against the Affordable Care Act, like Florida, Louisiana, looks like South Carolina is the same color. So hopefully that answers your question. And as I mentioned, we're going to send the presentation out and post it as well. Also, Ray asked if Ryan White will be funded. So I guess what the bulletin has laid out, it really depends on what the state's approach will be toward essential health benefits. Ryan White is a federal program, so that will be a separate federal issue. But state funding for AIDS assistance programs, it really will depend on your state. But Ryan White is a federal program, and it looks like that there is still support for that program as well.
It's like I'm at a meeting.
Does anybody have any other questions? I know I can hear it too, there's a lot of feedback, so we apologize.
What got to do with time?
So does anybody have any other questions?
Kind of fight through the feedback here. Laura, you had a really good question. What is your recommendation for kind of dealing with the apathy that's out there on this issue and many issues? And that is a perennial question and challenge for advocates. I think the biggest thing is, just first educating people about the specifics of this issue, EHBs, and just really kind of making it clear that if the full range of options and choice is not in the EHB package in our state, then a lot of people are going to be affected, that we might not be able to get the factor that you need, that your family needs, that the treatment, the pharmacy services, and the choice, and to really bring it down to their interests and how it might affect them. And then also to say that, one of the frustrations is that this has gone to the states and kind of punted, some people would say, to the states. But the flip side of that can be a positive side, is that it's oftentimes easier to talk to your state legislator than it is to, say, your congressperson. State legislators will be easier to educate on this issue, too, because many of them are just so new to it. So when you walk into their office, you're, in many ways, when you kind of use the policy resources that we have and learn about the issue even just a little bit, you might be walking in as the expert. So that's a positive side to that. So just, bringing home the real personal effects that it could have, sharing your own thoughts in a very genuine way, and looking at the positive side of it, too, that you can really meet one-on-one with the decision makers at the state level.
And there's a question for Nathan. It was regarding the insurance company representation on the exchange board in Colorado. Sue Cowell from North Carolina mentioned that this is a big issue in North Carolina. So she asked if you could share how this is working in Colorado.
Good question. Thanks a lot. In Colorado, we were basically the enabling legislation that set up the exchange in Colorado allowed for industry representation on the board. And the way it was worded said not more than a majority could be industry. And it just so happens that the different appointing authorities appointed several industry representatives, including three insurance executives and a couple others that had direct ties. So that's something that we had to struggle, particularly myself and the others that are more of the community advocates on the board, how to deal with. At this point, we have not really had any major decisions that would set themselves up to expose those kinds of conflicts of interest yet, but we anticipate them in the future. So one of the things that we did, or I spearheaded in developing the bylaws, was developing a fairly robust conflicts of interest policy that would allow us to shine a light on any sort of conflicts and deal with them, and have industry members recuse themselves from voting when necessary. I mean, we have a state law that prevents, they're not allowed to vote on issues when there is a direct conflict of interest, but they can still openly discuss any issues. The other thing that we did as a board is to make sure that we have constant and frequent community input, both during our board meetings and during focus group sessions and community events, so that if something comes up where there's a direct conflict of interest between industry and the work of the board, that the public has a lot of opportunity to comment on it. Like I said, we haven't really had any issues where we've had a conflict yet. We expect that we probably will over the next year or two, but hopefully we've laid some groundwork so that we can keep that on the surface and not hidden.
Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate that, and that was helpful. Any other questions? I think we've gone through the questions that we received through the webinar. We have one other question regarding 340Bs, and we're going to try to open the line. This is a question from Ray. We're going to try to open the line to you, Ray, and we'll give it a shot. Appreciate everyone's patience. We're still learning here technologically, so if you can persevere through these technological difficulties, you can persevere through any long EHB debate possible. Now, Ray, are you on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Ray.
Oh, you can. I was
Yep.
just asking, when he was talking about conflict of interest with industries, does that conflict of interest work with 340Bs and treatment centers, or that's not an issue?
Harry, can you repeat that again?
In Colorado, they said they could have industry on their board and dealing with a conflict of interest issues. Okay, what I'm asking him is basically, if there's a 340B that is selling Factor and is a home care company, can they sit on the board, and do they have a conflict of interest and be treated the same as if they were industry, like a home care company or a pharmaceutical company?
Yeah. In Colorado, the law is basically the conflicts of interest are based on financial. If there's a financial conflict of interest, meaning if the person on the board, and it's also personal, so whoever is seated on the board, they have to disclose what their financial, who they work for, what they make money from, that sort of thing. And that's the yardstick that's used to judge whether something's a conflict of interest for a decision for the board. So You know, we've got a few insurance executives. We've got somebody that runs a mental health clinic. We've got somebody who's in a health IT field. So that's, you know, right now there's no 340B or pharmacy involved, at least in Colorado.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that question, Ray, and for addressing it, Nathan. We're going to wrap up now. We're getting to the end of our time. Thanks for everyone's interest and patience. If you have other questions, feel free to email them to Ebony or to myself, and we'll get right on it and provide you, I think, some helpful information. Again, I just want to stress the new webpage that we have, ehb.hemophiliafed.org. We think it's a good resource for you on this issue in particular, with some real practical resources. And please share that with people who might be on your advocacy committee or friends that you might have who are interested in advocacy. This is something I think that can be very beneficial. So thank you. But I guess I ended with the word beneficial. You know, it can be essentially beneficial. Maybe I should say that. And healthy. So I got all three words in another way. But anyways, thank you very much. And we, I believe Ebony just put up the advocacy policy webinar schedule. And we will have one coming up in March, I believe. And that one, these are subject to some change. So if things come up that we need to address, we'll take those. But right now, March 21 is scheduled to be messaging. So we're going to be talking a little bit about how do you frame the issues that our community has and the interests that our community has. What words work, what words don't. And we want to again, thank everyone. We had great attendance tonight. I think we probably had the largest attendance that we've ever had on a webinar and tonight. And so that was great. We had, I think, 30 or more on at any given time. So we're really excited by the energy, and this is a good energy to kick off our webinar series for 2012. So thanks a lot, everyone, and I hope that you enjoy the evening. Take care.